All right, let's jump right into today's explainer. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're looking at a pretty fascinating technological shift that has completely transformed how we do physical security. I mean, we have officially left the era of those grainy, super hard to read analog surveillance tapes, right? We've entered this hyper-connected world of crystal clear 4K systems. But as you'll see today, this incredible connectivity, it's really a double-edged sword. It brings absolutely massive benefits, for sure, but it also introduces these hidden digital dangers that can actually threaten the very facilities these cameras are supposed to protect.
So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to start with the evolution from analog to IP, cover power over Ethernet, and look at video storage. Then we'll pivot to the cyber threats, and finally, wrap up with how to actually secure these systems.
Section 1. Analog to IP evolution. The leap to 4K.
We are officially in the smart era now.
Okay, so there's a really stark contrast between modern IP network cameras and the old-school analog CCTV. If you've ever dealt with analog systems, you know they were incredibly limited. You had these messy coaxial cables that needed their own separate power lines, and the resolution usually maxed out around 720p or maybe 1080p. If you tried to zoom in on a face or a license plate, you just got this blurry, pixelated mess. But IP networks, it's a whole different ballgame. We're talking resolutions up to 4K, 12 megapixel, or even 16 megapixel streams. Plus, these modern networks allow for what we call edge AI analytics. That basically means the brainpower, things like facial recognition or motion tracking, happens right there on the camera itself, instead of relying entirely on some central processing box in a back room.
Moving on to Section 2. Power over Ethernet, the single cable solution. This is the hardware backbone of it all.
So what exactly is PoE? Well, Power over Ethernet is a technology that uses a single wired Ethernet cable to carry both your data transmission and your electrical power to a device. Think of it like this. It's like taking two congested, separate roads and replacing them with one incredibly efficient superhighway. Instead of running a data cable back to your network switch and then finding a totally separate power cord to plug into a wall outlet, the whole shebang runs through just one single Cat5 or Cat6 cable.
And honestly, this makes PoE a total game changer for enterprise infrastructure. Since you don't need to be anywhere near an electrical outlet, you get unmatched flexibility for where you put your cameras. You can mount one way up high on a parking lot pole or tucked deep inside a massive warehouse. It's also super scalable. Want a new camera? Just plug another cable into your network switch. But the absolutely crucial point here is reliability. Commercial setups use these high-bandwidth pan-tilt-zoom cameras, right? If you throw those on a standard commercial Wi-Fi network, they're going to suffer from signal drops. A hardwired PoE connection guarantees they stay online 24/7. And, as a huge bonus, you can hook your central PoE switch up to a UPS, an uninterruptible power supply, meaning your entire security network stays completely powered up even if the building loses power.
Section 3. Video storage and compression. Handling the 4K flood. Because yeah, all this high-resolution data creates a pretty massive flood.
So, I want to pose this question to you. Where does all this 4K data actually go? Just one 1080p camera can generate over a gigabit of raw data every single second. Now multiply that by dozens or even hundreds of 4K cameras. You're looking at a monumental storage problem. Enter the NVR. To really get modern storage, we need to look at the difference between old DVRs and modern NVRs, that's network video recorders. So old digital video recorders processed analog video at the recorder level. The camera was basically just a dumb lens sending a raw signal down a cable, and the DVR did all the heavy lifting to digitize it. But with an IP system, the NVR is storing digital video that's already been encoded. The heavy lifting, that processing and compressing, it all happens right at the edge, inside the IP camera itself. The NVR just acts as this highly efficient safekeeper and buffer, receiving and storing files that are already good to go.
Now, you might be wondering, how do these cameras shrink that massive flood of data before sending it over to the NVR? Well, they use video compression codecs. An older baseline format is MJPEG, or Motion JPEG. Think of MJPEG like drawing stick figures on the corner of a notebook. You know, when you flip the pages really fast, it looks like motion. But here's the catch. Every single frame is an individual, distinct picture. While it definitely works, it creates absolutely massive file sizes that will chew through your local bandwidth in no time. And that's exactly why the industry had to evolve. The modern H.265 codec, also known as high-efficiency video coding, gives us a 25% to 50% higher compression efficiency. It's actually brilliant. By comparing frames and only recording what changes between them, like a person walking past a static background, rather than saving every single pixel of every single frame, H.265 lets us store weeks of crystal clear 4K footage using just a fraction of the hard drive space.
Section 4. The cyber threat landscape, the plot twist. Because here is where things get a little scary.
The very thing that makes these IP systems so amazing, the connectivity, the edge computing, is exactly what creates massive cybersecurity vulnerabilities. Modern IP cameras aren't just cameras anymore. They have embedded operating systems. They're literally fully connected computers just hanging on your wall. And because they tie into control networks and cloud platforms, they open up expansive new attack surfaces. Malicious actors aren't just trying to spray paint the camera lens anymore. They're targeting these devices to infiltrate larger industrial networks. They're essentially using your own security system as an unlocked backdoor into your business.
We can really break this down using the classic cybersecurity framework, the CIA triad. Let's walk through it quickly. First, confidentiality. If an attacker intercepts your unencrypted video streams, highly sensitive imagery of your plant layout or your operations could be completely compromised. Second, integrity. Imagine an attacker pulling off a man-in-the-middle attack to hijack feeds and play looped footage like in a heist movie. It misleads your security operators while a physical breach is actively happening. And finally, availability. A simple DOS, or denial of service attack, can flood a camera's network ports with so much traffic that it crashes the live feed precisely when you need it most.
This right here is the exact intersection of digital exploits and physical vulnerabilities. Industrial systems are being threatened at multiple levels now. An attacker might exploit an unpatched firmware backdoor to leak data, or they might use hidden malware to subtly degrade your image quality over time without anyone noticing. In a worst-case scenario, hackers can turn your cameras into part of a botnet, consuming all your enterprise resources, or they can completely disable the physical security of your facility from literally thousands of miles away. Section 5. Securing Industrial CCTV Systems. Building the Shield. Let's talk about how to fix this. Securing these systems requires a totally collaborative, layered approach. It doesn't start the day you mount the camera on the wall, it starts during manufacturing. Vendors need to embed security right into the product development lifecycle. We're talking rigorous threat modeling, dynamic fuzz testing on network protocols, and conducting structured penetration tests to find those vulnerabilities long before the hardware ever leaves the factory floor.
But on the user end, your absolute first step is strong authentication. You have got to eliminate those default manufacturer passwords immediately upon setup. No exceptions. Furthermore, you need to strictly enforce RBAC, or role-based access control. This is basically the principle of least privilege. So a standard security operator should absolutely have the permissions to view live feeds and control the PTZ functions, but they should be completely locked out of altering critical network configurations or making new admin accounts.
Okay, next up is data encryption. You have to ensure that all communications and stored footage are encrypted using industry-standard protocols, like TLS 1.2 or higher. Think of encryption like a digital vault. Even if an eavesdropper or a man-in-the-middle attacker manages to intercept the data flowing across your PoE cables, encryption ensures that all they see is scrambled, unreadable garbage. It stops them dead in their tracks.
Finally, you really need to align with globally recognized regulatory standards. Frameworks like IEC 62443, UL 2900-1, or the STQC standard, these aren't just about checking a box for some compliance audit. Adopting these standards means you're holding both your hardware vendors and your own internal IT practices to a rigorously tested baseline. It's about actively protecting the safety and the continuity of your entire industrial operation against a threat landscape that is constantly changing.
So that brings us to the end of our explainer, but I want to leave you with this final, kind of provocative thought to chew on. In an era of total connectivity, is your physical security creating a digital open door? Look, the leap to 4K, AI-driven, PoE-connected cameras is undoubtedly an incredible advancement for physical surveillance. But if those powerful edge computers aren't secured with strong authentication, encryption, and proper lifecycle management, they become the exact weak link that hackers are looking for. So take a hard look at your own networks, evaluate the digital security of your physical surveillance, and make absolutely sure your shields are up. Thanks so much for joining me today on this explainer, and keep learning.